This is the Heather Petero Show, where conversation meets calling. Well, welcome back to the Heather Petero Show, where conversation meets calling. And of course, I'm Heather Petero. You know, most people think of singing as this mysterious gift. You either have it or you don't. My guest today has spent decades proving that is not true. She believes everyone not only can sing, but should sing. Lisa Popeil is a singer, songwriter, pianist, researcher, performer, and creator of the Voiceworks Method. She's toured with Weird Al Yankovic, recorded with Frank Zappa, had her own album named a Billboard Top Pick, and has spent years studying, teaching, writing, and researching the voice from just about every angle you can imagine. So today we are talking about confidence, identity, freedom, expression, and she happens to also be one of my favorite people. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. What an intro. I love that. I need that in writing. That was the best synopsis I've ever heard. It's like, I want to know that woman. Oh, that's me. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, listen, I want to start before the credentials. You grew up around a family name that people might recognize, and your world was not exactly short on creativity, invention, or personality. Your father was known for products that became part of American pop culture, and your brother became famous in his own right as well. So this is not your average sleepy dinner table setup. What was it actually like growing up in that kind of environment?
I found it inspiring to have family members who were passionate about what they did. And they enjoyed the figuring out how to make things better, how to solve problems. They had a lot of energy. They took things that might be considered silly, plastic items that are really invented to be gifts more than used, that interestingly became part of American culture, Americana. I just had a birthday recently, and I decorated all the tables at the venue with Popeil products and Ronco products, and I presented a video of various commercials, and just to see the smiles on people's faces. I mean, this is really the over 50 crowd who are looking and going, "Oh, I remember that. Oh, I still have one of those. Oh, I loved mine," or I use it all the time. These are some of the things I still hear. So there's an interesting relationship between gadgets and television and 1950s, 60s, 70s, and even 90s, because my brother Ron was sort of king of the infomercials, king of QVC in the 90s with his Showtime rotisserie, Mr. Set It and Forget It, and just makes people happy. I find that combination of selling and being sold to as a joyful experience for all parties very interesting. It's not just the seller, it's the buyer who's finds a satisfaction in it. Or it's not just the buyer, but it's the seller. Most everybody thought that was a cool idea, or that would make my life better, or my mom or my dad would really appreciate having that in their kitchen. Another thing I remember is that my dad would go to work. S.J. Popeil, Seymour Popeil, Samuel Popeil, he had many names. He'd go to work at 10 o'clock in the morning. He had a factory with hundreds of workers. Everything was done in-house, from the writing to the marketing to the assembly of the products to tool and die manufacturing. All took place in his factories. He had 3 different factories over the years. And I remember thinking that 10 a.m. seemed like the right time to go to work. And so as a singing teacher, that was when I started teaching. Unlocked my front door to my studio was going to be 10 a.m. And it's just a silly little thing, but it was an homage really to the sort of, that makes sense. Why work at the crack of dawn if you absolutely don't have to. Give yourself time. Another thing I noticed about my dad was he'd have in business, he said, business or problems? Business is problems. And when he would wake up in the morning and I'd see a little stack of little tiny white papers. He had woken up in the middle of the night several times with answers to questions or solutions to problems he was having or just things he was thinking about. And he'd write them down and there'd be a little stack in the morning. And I thought that was interesting too, that problem solving was a huge part of being a creative business person. And I think I have a similar approach, a similar idea of when it comes to voice improvement, how good can I get? How to fix my vocal problems. And interestingly, there are a lot of common, I don't know if you found this, but there's certain vocal issues or problems or questions that people have that are pretty consistent across the board. So having quick solutions for them, even for long-standing vocal problems, has been a big focus of my 60 years of voice study, over 50 years of teaching, every age, every level of talent, every style. And I'm still passionate about learning what's really going on inside because there's still a lot of mystery because it's invisible. As a pianist, and as an instrumentalist, you can watch your hands, you can imitate people's hands. But singing has always been more mysterious. And in terms of artistry, I think some mystery is good. I think we should let certain mysteries lie and not try to answer everything with a scientific answer. I like the idea that there's still magic to be experienced that doesn't have to be explained. But the mechanics of singing, in order to help people get better quickly, so every singing lesson is an opportunity for them to go, oh my gosh, I learned so much. I'm so much better. And they can get to the songs faster. They can get to performing with more confidence. They can start recording with more efficiency. They know how to control their musical instrument. And then the magic can come from that.
So, yeah, definitely growing up around inventors and marketers did shape the way you think, and it helped you to take something complicated and make it usable for regular human beings, which is just amazing. So, did you ever find that it was harder having a recognizable last name? Did it ever create pressure for you?
No one's ever asked me that, and it's very astute. No, it's only been a benefit. Anything that can make you memorable, that is honorable. I mean, it's like, if you're memorable because you've killed somebody, that I'm not promoting, but it's only anything that brings a smile to people's faces or is an opportunity to have a conversation and to open up a conversation to get to know someone better. Is a good thing. And so I always, with students who have professional aspirations, we talk about that, about what is it about you that's special and memorable, that if you were going to be interviewed, what could you say that makes you unique, but still true to what you believe in and what good you want to do in the world. So no, I never found it to be a problem. Because I was born mid-20th century, it wasn't expected that I be successful in a career. I grew up in my childhood years thinking I would not work, that I would work until I married and have children. And when I started thinking about that as a teenager, I realized that wasn't interesting. And as it turns out, I never have actually married. I'm in a married relationship, but I'm not, I haven't signed anything on a piece of paper. So back to your question. It's all been good. And my family was very supportive of my music. My brother was always supportive. My dad was always supportive. Some of the last words I heard him speak before he passed away in 1984 was, how's your music going? Because I was a singer-songwriter and wanted to be the pop star in the 80s. And I always remember that. It was so sweet of him. He could have said, I'm dying and I feel No, he asked about how's your music? And I always remember that with great fondness.
That's wonderful. Well, you studied very seriously. This was not dabbling. Cal Arts, multiple disciplines, humanistic psychology in the mix. There's a real intellectual and artistic depth there. At what point did you realize you weren't just going to be somebody who sang well, but you were willing to build a whole life around understanding why voices work the way they do?
Well, in order to answer that wonderful question, I have to go back to the beginning, which was that when I was 4, we had a grand piano in the house, and my mother said, "Would you like to take piano lessons?" And I said, "Okay." And then when I was 6, she said, "Would you like to take singing lessons?" And I said, "Okay." If I had not had that opportunity, I wouldn't be a musician at all. I'd probably be in science or academia because I love to learn. I love to learn new things. And I have a natural affinity for languages. So I probably would have become a linguist, a linguistics teacher, something like that. Or combined with psychology. I don't know. I have natural inclinations toward that. I never did feel until recently that I had a natural genetic talent for music, but it was simply the opportunity and the fascination and making beautiful sound that really got me going. When I was 7, I was having vocal problems, and I don't know if I've told you this story, but my mother was trying to search for a new singing teacher for me. But the trained classical singing teachers, there were no pop teachers around at the time. This was in the early 60s in Chicago, where I grew up. So we knew of a woman. She was from Germany. She was a classical teacher, and she did not accept children under the age of 14, which was quite common then. It was thought that beginning classical voice training prior to physical maturation could be harmful. So now I'm 7 years old and I'm having hoarseness. I don't recall it, but my voice was not in good shape because my previous teacher had just basically told me to yell. I remember performing 76 trombones at the top of my lungs, and I guess that made me hoarse. So now at 7, this teacher would not accept me as a student, and my mother bullied her into taking me. She said to Mrs. Gisela Göttling, a huge, huge influence on my voice, and for whom I'll always be grateful to have had her almost as a second mother. My mother said to her, "So what am I supposed to do? Take her to another crappy singing teacher?" Thank you, Mom. So now I'm 7, and I was smart and attentive, and I found all of it fascinating. I found that the classical training for me combined not only music and reading music, but language, French and German and Italian. And I felt like I was stepping into another world, as though I were stepping into a painting. So I would sing as though I were a historic figure. And I was singing on adult themes of passion and love and grief and loss. And I always felt like an old soul anyway. So I didn't have any problem feeling deeply these quite mature experiences that I had not experienced either in film or obviously in real life. But the thing that was frustrating to me was that there weren't clear explanations for anything. The teaching was done in a traditional style that goes back 200-300 years that uses imagination. Imagine that the flame is flickering when you're singing. It was not mechanistic. I had to guess at what my dear teacher was trying to impart. And I also sensed at times that she wasn't really sure if she was using the best words, but there was some guessing going on. And I remember being very physical. She was quite an impressive, large woman, not fat, but just really an impressive, tall. And she would take her hands and she'd put my hands in her hands and say, feel this now, and feel this, and feel this. And there was all this random grabbing and touching and pushing and pulling, but without the clarity of what was supposed to be doing what and how much. And I thought, how hard could this be? Because people, especially in pop singing, people seem to be able to do this with no lessons at all. So here I am. Now I'm getting to be about 11 years old. I'm starting to write my own pop songs. I was inspired by Carole King and Elton John and who else was Barbra Streisand. And so I'm playing the piano quite well at that time, and I'm writing my songs. And I wanted her to ask her, could I would like to learn that also. Because I couldn't sing like people on the radio. And I thought that was weird. Like, I have all this training. I go for 1 hour every week. In that hour lesson, we're doing 50 minutes of tedious, slow, difficult vocal exercises with very little instruction. I would just do them and get quite tired. And then maybe 10 minutes of working on songs. So that also seemed inefficient because it seemed like it should go a little faster and that I should be spending more time working on the songs. There were so many songs to learn. And again, back to 11 years old, and I asked dear Mrs. Getling if she could help me. And she got really, really mad. I mean, mad, like red in the face mad. She said, if you learn to sing that way, you are risking losing your voice and you are risking losing everything we've worked for.
Oh, my goodness.
So I knew that I didn't believe her, but I knew she was very concerned about that and that she wouldn't be able to help me. So I had to figure it out on my own. But what I noticed was when I'd sing pop songs, every time I'd sing higher, I'd always be in head voice. Now, I could make it sound like a non-operatic head voice, but it would still be head voice. And when I was listening to Aretha Franklin or Barbra Streisand sing, I could tell they were not in head voice. They were in some kind of chest voice up high. But I didn't know how to do that. The muscle memory I had developed over these years didn't allow me to do it without discomfort. So I knew I was missing. So it was really through frustration, lack of clarity, and the inability to do what singers with no training could do helped me try to figure things out. Now, when I got my master's degree in voice, classical voice, I almost quit music altogether because why did I do that? I guess I still had a lot of questions. And by then, and now we're talking about the early 1980s, there were still very few teachers in Los Angeles that had experience with pop singing who weren't just failed rock singers who needed to make some money. So I'd go and see everybody that was known in Los Angeles, and I'd pick up a little bit here and a little bit there, and I'd keep experimenting. And then I decided to give the pop music world my best shot and recorded constantly and had a record deal and made my own album. And I just really gave it my all. And then I quit that in 1987. And then a big turning point happened, too, where I got an opportunity to teach at community college in 1990. And I found that seemed like my calling. I was able to gather and use and share everything I'd ever done because my family had provided me amazing educational opportunities, the very finest private schools, private lessons in elocution, and I had dance and I had ballet, continued with piano the whole time, songwriting. I mean, anything I wanted to do, they were supportive of. So I had done acting, languages. There was so much that I could bring. So I did one class that was a classical voice class, and one class that was a pop class. And by then I was been recording and singing on most of Weird Al's albums. That started that in the night. I recorded and performed with Frank Zappa in the early 80s and then Weird Al all through the 80s. So I could bring in guests. I was really interested in sharing my experience with managers and agents and the business of popular music. I was really getting good at musical theater repertoire and the differences between musical theater singing styles and pop. This was really before musical theater and pop sort of merged. So I incorporate that too when I teach musical theater, particularly when I'm teaching teachers who think that there's one belting sound for musical theater, and there isn't. So I have that into 5 different, what I call belting substyles. Also, different kinds of head voice use that's used in musical theater. There's 3 different types of head voice use, depending on the character or the style or the demands of that particular musical. So it all developed, but I found that teaching and sharing my life's work up to that point was so deeply rewarding. And it wasn't full of rejection, like trying to be a pop star had been full of rejection. But I wouldn't have changed it because I got to meet so many amazing people and learn so many things and there weren't any books on that at the time. There was no YouTube, there was no internet. So it was really about sharing experiences with young people who had no other way of learning about this. And in my college classes, I'd bring in guests from some famous bands. Weird Al came once.
Wow.
And I still songwrite for my students. I'm semi-retired now, but I talk about charisma enhancement, hand gesture, eyeball choreography, dance choreography, do all of it. Because if there's any one piece that's missing in someone's experience, they're not going to, get as far as they might if they have. I like to be a one-stop shop from
Sure.
music, teaching how to read music, basic pop piano. I think that's so fun to share with people who think they're coming for singing lessons, but I can tell they want to know more. They want to know the big picture. They may not have talent as a musician, but I want them as a singer to know how to talk to a band. So if they get an opportunity to sing at a wedding, they have enough background that they can communicate with real musicians.
Sure.
I just think that's really fun to learn and fun to teach.
It is, and it's good real life music skills to learn. So let's backtrack just a little bit. I want to know, what did working around someone like Frank Zappa teach you about musicianship, originality, and precision?
Well, it was the most difficult musical experience I've ever had because I did not audition for him. I was an audition because my boyfriend at the time was auditioning, and I just came to support my boyfriend. So it was serendipity. It was sort of being there at this. My boyfriend didn't get the gig. Frank was infamous for being mean. If you couldn't cut his impossibly challenging musical audition requirements, he'd just tell you to get out. And I thought, well, that's not nice. But it became clear to one of the existing band members that I could read music. That's the way my brain works. Don't ask me to memorize 200 songs for a top 40 gig. That's not my thing. But you put anything in front of me, I'll play it or I can sing it. Just because I had more time in the saddle with that, since I was 4. So I accidentally was corralled into auditioning for him. And I was overweight. I was dressed horribly. I was not there to impress. I was not there to audition. Well, he auditioned me for, a good 50 minutes. And I turned around. This was at a studio in LA. And there were more and more people behind me, and they were just like shocked. Like, who is this girl? I was 25 years old, maybe 24, 25. Where did she come from? How is she doing this thing I could do at the piano and I could fake? So then it's a long, fascinating story, but basically I was in the band as a keyboard player, secondarily as a singer, and I would try to be funny by singing in an operatic style, but with jazz stylings and some extended vocal techniques that would make him laugh because comedy was a big part of what he did. So I knew I was on a trial, very nicely paid. Thank you very much. But it was a difficult 3 weeks that I was rehearsing. It was in a warehouse with synthesizers. This was 1981. This was the beginning of synthesizers. I was a pianist. I didn't know the music. He required someone who could memorize 4 hours of somewhat unplayable music in any key, in any style. He might just give a cue that you have to change it. We're going to do a country version of this, or So I did my best. I practiced from the time I woke up, and then an 8-hour rehearsal with no break in an unair-conditioned warehouse in North Hollywood for music I'd never heard before. That was really, I can't tell you how challenging the music was. I mean, he was famous for that. And then he'd come in at the end of the last hour or two of the rehearsal, and everyone's hair would stand up on the back of their necks because Pops was there, and he was demanding, and he was precise, and you had to be on your best behavior. So then I'd go home, and then I'd rehearse, I'd practice, and my hands were swollen from practicing as much as I was. And I would get sad and I would cry. And I have to say, he was so kind to me. Again, nobody has kind stories. He was kind to me. He would sit with me after the rehearsal, real close, very fatherly. And because he saw something in me. He saw that I had unique skills and that I could be a real asset. And he just was very supportive. And but eventually, it became clear that I couldn't hack the 4 hours of music on synthesizer, each with their own settings. And so I was replaced. And I have to be honest, I was relieved. I was disappointed, of course, but I was relieved because the idea of going on I don't know how many cities there were. It was 90 cities. It was a lot of cities. I would have been the only female among maybe 45 guys traveling all across the US and Canada. And he gave me this speech. He said, I'll leave some of the foul language out of it, but the basic thing that he said to me about touring was that it's like commando warfare. If you're sick on stage. It's going to be 90 degrees on stage, and it's going to be 40 degrees off stage when we're in Canada. And I was supposed to whip out high Ds. I haven't had a high D since I was 45, and I'll never have it again. He goes, if you have a problem, you don't go into the bathroom and powder your nose. And he was famous for humiliating his players on stage if they made an obvious mistake. He would stop the show, critique them, and then they'd have to start the song over again. So there was a lot of pressure. And I'd never toured before. And I was replaced by a gentleman who was a very experienced keyboardist, touring keyboardist, great saxophonist. Frank had asked if I played saxophone, and I said no. He goes, well, get one. So I borrowed one, and I couldn't make sound with it. I can play a flute like that, but I could only make weird honking sounds on the saxophone. I also brought my violin in, which I also could not play and hurt my ears. And I would do that and make, joke and then whip out some funny high notes. And he thought it was hysterical. But anyway, he replaced me with a real skilled rock tenor keyboardist. but he wasn't funny. He wasn't sexy. He was just really good. And I have performed with him recently in the last few years. So we're great. But when I got a chance to, when Frank called me and said, "Do you want to be in the Santa Monica show?" I just was so excited. So I went on. I was in lingerie, little French maid's outfit, little heels of French stockings with garter with the seam up the back. I decided to give him and his audience what I knew they'd enjoy because it was mostly guys. And it went really, really well. It was and I still perform those songs, and I've had people cry where they said, "I saw you in 1981, and this is the first time, that I'm still alive and still can sing these songs at different Zappa festivals or with Zappa tribute bands." So it's a wonderful family of intensely skilled musicians. They're all like nuts, but they can play like you can't believe. And the opportunity to sing with musicians of that caliber is seriously, not facetiously, seriously an honor that I get a chance to, even at my age, still get to perform with them at various clubs and Zappa events.
That's awesome. So let's talk about Weird Al real quick. People hear humor and novelty, but what they often miss is the skill level required. I mean, style awareness, vocal flexibility, precision, comic timing, musicianship. How did that work with Al sharpen you in a different way?
How did it sharpen me? The opportunity to record really sharpens one's skills because there's pressure. The tape that tells you how far we go back. But the tape is rolling, and you got to be in tune, and you got to read the music. Now he comes from an architecture background, and a lot of people don't realize that. He's so bright that it's sometimes intimidating to be around because you can feel his mind working at a faster processing speed. So as smart as I feel that I can be in moments, it's not never as fast as his mind. And he would prepare. He would prepare. So there were tapes we had, and we had the sheet music. So it wasn't just, what are we doing today? He's not loose that way. And he's over the years, not anymore, but back in the beginning, and he knew my musical background because he was mostly self-taught. I mean, he was very skilled at a young age on the accordion, but he knew because of the whole Zappa, and he was a Zappa fan. And so he would ask me, and not just me, he'd ask other friends of his for their opinion on, should I do this, should I do that? And I thought that was really cool that he was not a person who was too proud to say, I'm going to do this all by myself and I don't want any input from other people. So he's a good team player that way. I mean, now he knows what he wants. So but he's not intimidating, but he knows what he wants, and he might change it. So in a session, he might switch parts with another person to get a certain blend. But that architecture precision background has helped him put his ideas in very clear form. But the idea of changing or improving is always open with him.
At some point, a lot of gifted people have to decide whether they're going to keep chasing the spotlight or pour themselves into something that might actually outlast it. And I am so glad that you moved towards building methods, teaching systems, and you have a body of work that could help singers way beyond the performances. And this is where I wanted to say something personal to you. I met you about 2003, so that goes back over 20 plus years now. And truly, you helped shape me as a teacher in a major way. You sharpened how I hear things, how I think about the voice, how I explain things, and how I help students work through issues with more clarity and less confusion. You also helped me connect technique to freedom instead of fear, and that really changed me. And the beautiful part is it doesn't stop with me. That ripple went straight into my studio and into my students. So in a very real way, your work has touched singers you've never even met because your influence on me became part of what I passed on to them. So I just wanted to say to you plainly today that you've been a huge part of why I am the teacher I am today. And I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. So, it means so much to me to have a legacy of fun and joy and beauty is wow. It makes me so deeply happy. And we all look for meaningfulness in life. And even though it's hard to define what meaningfulness is, we still, on some deep level, know what it means. It's just hard to describe it in other words. And I think that teaching and singing is more than any other instrument can lift people's moods so much. The students who come in who are upset, they have cramps, they're sick, they have pressure, they're exhausted. But at the end of their lesson, even if it's a half-hour lesson, they're smiling, they're happy, they can't wait to come back. And as a singer, I always tell my professionally minded singers that they're in the happiness business. And when you get on stage, it's not about you. It's about bringing joy to all those people who can't do what you can do. They get to be you. They get to be beautiful. They get to be glamorous. They get to be talented. They get to forget about their daily mundane worries for a time. So it's always about giving and channeling light and goodness through yourself. And it helps singers not be so self-conscious. What are they thinking about me? Are they looking at my belly? Are they, am I going to be in tune tonight? Am I going to be able to hit the high note? Am I going to remember the words? I mean, these are all real issues, but the way to create real benefit is to always focus on delivering a sublime and uplifting and even, let's say, escapist atmosphere and experience for the audience. And I wonder how many of us performers have saved lives. How many people are suicidal? They're miserable. And sometimes they just need a little bit of lift, a little escape. And they get to be you with a beautiful voice, and they don't have to be them for a little bit. Sometimes that's all it needs to disconnect that looping that they may have about their marriage, their children, their work problem, their health issues, their finances. So I feel like, to sum that up, is that we must focus on being a provider of social services to our audience, that everything we do on stages for them. Whatever you do in your home, in your shower, in your bathroom, your car, wherever you like to sing, that's for you. But when you get on stage, open your eyes. Don't close your eyes and sit there like a lump and try to look cool. Give, give, give.
Oh, that's good stuff. So let's kind of debunk some of the fuzzy language that we've all have heard in our voice studies. Too much, place it here, imagine this, support more, while everybody in the room nods and still has no idea what that means. Singers who have been told to breathe from the diaphragm for 40 years and half of them still don't know what anybody's talking about. So let's go there. You've said that breathing and support get confused constantly in vocal pedagogy. Break that down for us in a way that singers, teachers, and even the regular person can all follow, because we've all been told at some point, breathe through your diaphragm.
Right. It's a great question. And I'm going to be in Turkey, leaving in 1 week. I know, but I'm doing it. I'm brave. I'm going. And even I'm on a panel called Breathing and Respiration for Singing, and doesn't say support in the title. But they mean support. But it's not in the title of the panel. So I think that the easiest way is let's talk about the word breathing. So breathing in life, regular life, is you take air in to fill your lungs, which lowers the diaphragm. always remember, people, that the diaphragm is not your abdomen. So you could touch your abdomen and your waist, and none of that is your diaphragm. The diaphragm sits beneath your lungs. It's a dome-shaped muscle, and when it's relaxed, it's high and sort of softish. And then when it works, when it's moving, it contracts and flattens down a little bit, but it's still all within your rib cage. So you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it. Now, the abdomen is a different story, because when you, and I'll talk about this in a sec, when you support it a particular way that I teach, based on just decades of trying to figure out something that worked for people, and the way I teach it just works, like immediately changes a whole list of even long-standing problems. That when you touch your abdomen anywhere, it's not your diaphragm. So you can sort of forget about your diaphragm and realize that in life, like if you go to the doctor's office and they want to check to see your lung health, if you have pneumonia, they will ask you to breathe in and breathe out and breathe in and breathe out. But there's no vocal sound being made. And this is where support comes in. The vocal folds are remarkable, considering they're so tiny. I would say the average size for all males and females is between an American dime and a penny. So women are going to be more like a dime, and I'm more like a penny, and maybe a nickel for the lower male voices. So they're very small. A lot of people still think that they're chords, that they're vertical, and we pluck them somehow, but they're actually just two flaps, a left and a right. They're connected at the front, and they're quite high in the neck. They sit within the voice box, and which is, a lot of people don't even know where their voice box is. If you ask someone to touch their voice box, invariably they'll touch lower on their neck around their thyroid gland. So it's interesting to know, well, where is my voice box? Ooh, and when I'm talking and I'm touching my voice box, I can feel the vibration. So the point I'm getting to, a little sideways here, is that the vocal folds do not vibrate themselves. They can close and open, and they can thicken and thin. And there can be a few more complex things related to whether they're being passively stretched or actively stretched, on the angle, are they more horizontal or tilted a little bit? But that's not important. The main takeaway for everybody is that the vocal folds do not vibrate themselves. They have a tiny bit of muscle, really tiny muscle inside, called the vocalis muscle, and they're surrounded by like the inside of your cheek. It's a mucous membrane. It's pink. It's wet. Needs to be wet all the time. And there's a tiny little strip of ligament along the edge. And other animals don't have that ligament. Pigs and humans have that little ligament. So we can squeal, and pigs can squeal, but other animals can't squeal. So that's vaguely interesting. So how do we get the vocal folds to actually open and close? We could call that vibrating. Well, the air that leaves the body when you're singing or speaking has to have pressure in the airstream. And it's that pressure in the airstream which makes the vocal folds close and open. And they close and open really fast. So if I sing a note, I don't have perfect pitch, but if I sing a note similar to ooh, they're opening and closing 220 times a second. I'm aiming for an A below middle C. Ooh, I don't know if that's it, but around 220. Ooh, no, I'm too high. Ooh, let's say an A above middle C. That's 440 times every second that they're opening and closing. So it's easy to visualize how the higher you sing, the faster they have to open and close. And that requires more pressure in the airstream. So for singing and speech, what you want to do is think of breathing as air coming in only. We're putting air in the lungs, either filling the lungs or just bringing enough air. And like if you're a country singer, you don't need a lot of air because the phrases are short. So you don't have to have a lung full of air. You know, you may need a lung full of air for opera. You don't need a lung full of air for country. So it's depending on what the phrase is, how long and how loud that phrase needs to be. The point is that when you're not singing, air comes in. That's easy. But when you're singing or speaking or projecting your voice, yelling, calling, for theater voice, you have to use a certain procedure, I think, that is not exhaling, it's pressurizing the outgoing air. And I call that support. So support is short for the longer phrase abdominal breath support. And there's no agreement. I go to all these, for decades I've been going to international voice conferences, and I talk to a lot of different teachers. And very rarely do teachers, and some who are quite famous and work with a lot of famous people, they don't have a clear, precise way of describing how to do this absolutely fundamental task, without which the chords aren't happy. Meaning, if the chords aren't getting enough pressure or too much pressure, but usually they're not getting enough pressure in the airstream, then you get what I call compensatory tension. And that could be that your neck grabs, you feel choking, your vocal cords are squeezing, your jaw gets tight, your tongue gets tight. I've seen people have weird eyebrow motions because that's how their body manifests that the chords aren't getting enough pressure in the airstream. And so all these other facial muscles, our neck muscles are trying to help. And it looks funny and it's tiring and you can't do a lot with that kind of compensatory tension. It's very common for people who want to sing high notes to pull the head too far up or to twist the head or to tweak the head. That's another way that some singers manifest compensatory tension. These muscles from the collarbone up are compensating because the vocal cords aren't getting what they need to function efficiently and easily. So that leads to, well, then how do I do this? How do I do this so that I make singing look easy? How do I do this so I don't have compensatory tension on loud notes or high notes? And I'm not saying that there's only one way that works for everybody. There are great singers, naturally great singers, who have their own way. They may not even know what they're doing. I've seen some strange support methods, and the people sound great. But I wanted to come up with a method that worked for people who want to be better or want to be great because they're not naturally that way. And I wanted something that worked for different styles. Now, I do teach slight difference for classical singers, but I have this generic, and I would have been happy if it worked for 9 out of 10 people. And it works. I'm not going to be that bold to say it works for 10 out of 10, but it's close to 10 out of 10 people this works for immediately. And then the singer doesn't have to spend as much time working on relaxing the tongue, relaxing the jaw, thinking looseness, or whatever guesswork they have to do so they don't have compensatory tension. It's so simple. And I'm going to be lecturing on this when I'm in Turkey next week, because a lot of teachers and speechers, more than singing teachers, there are speech pathologists. That's a big, big field. There's like 10 times as many speech pathologists in the world than singing teachers. And they don't know this stuff. I've done workshops for speech pathologists who have quite damaged voices, actually. It's kind of like mentally ill people who become psychiatrists to kind of solve their own issues. I couldn't believe, like, some of the people, like, I'm a speech pathologist. Yeah, I work with disordered voices. Like, okay, let's try to get you in shape so they can model. So there are 4 basic jobs of support. I'll try to be super simple about it. And I'm so excited about sharing this information that I probably talk about it too much, but it's because not enough people are talking about it. And if they do, it's just because they've been in my workshops before, or they've read my, seen my videos. So job one of support, and this is whether you're singing pop, jazz, rock, country, R&B, opera, just try this. If there's anything that you think you could be better in your voice, it can't hurt to be precise. And again, this is just my opinion. If you're sounding great and you can do everything you want with your voice, great, wonderful. But if you're a teacher, I recommend being able to work with untalented people who are terrible, but they want to be better and they want to come every week and they want to learn from you. So I'm really trying to make sure that my teachers can demonstrate so people go, wow, that's great. I wish I could do that. Okay, let me show you how I did that. And by promoting myself as a essentially untalented person, that I'm a skilled person, but that I don't have natural talent. Now, I've come to think that that's not true because there's a side of my family and they're all in voice. But I only knew about that very late in my life. Like that I've got two who were, professional voiceover artists. I had a great grandfather who was a cantor. There's one who's a speech pathologist. They all sing well, but it's just this one tiny line that I just never realized that there's probably there's some genetics going on. But I don't have a great instrument, and I'll be honest about that. Some people have great instrument. What's your instrument? It's your head. Not your vocal cords, it's your head. If you have a big head, you can have a bigger voice. If you have eyes that are wide with big wide cheekbones and a big jaw with 3 points and a protruding pointy chin, it tends to be, I see this with really good singers. So that gives you a better instrument. So what I like to tell people is I have like a Chevy. I was born with a Chevy. It's attractive. It doesn't look like I have a big head, but I pay for it in that I will never have the greatest instrument. But what I can do is be the best driver of my car. I can be a skilled driver and I can get the most out of my small head.
That's a good analogy. I love that.
Yeah, some people have great heads, and I think they're better singers also because they can hear themselves more.
Oh, yeah.
They can be louder with less effort. And small head people have to find ways to be louder, but without so much effort that they're overcompensating.
Sure, sure. Well, let's change gears a little bit. One thing that you said really stopped me was this idea that voice lessons can create immense personal growth. And that is so true. It's just not talked about nearly enough. I think people think voice lessons are just about pitch, tone, range, breath, diction, like all the obvious things. But voice lessons can also reveal insecurity. The voice is so vulnerable. It can reveal fear, shame, control, perfectionism, people pleasing, sometimes grief, sometimes trauma, sometimes the fact that someone has never really been told it's okay to take up space. And in fact, on my first podcast, I talked about the permission to be creative, and especially adults need that reminder that it's okay to create and to express yourself. I also said we have enough information in this world. We don't have enough expression. Real quickly, talk about that real briefly.
Oh, well, I want to hear what you have to say about that. It was such a beautiful.
Well, you'll have to listen back to the first episode.
Oh, okay. That's good advice. A lot of people come to singing lessons because they have unresolved emotional issues. So I think it's very useful for singing teachers to have empathy, to have some training or experience with psychology. I can't tell you how many times I've had students who they start singing and they start crying. So they come to singing because of all the things that you so wonderfully just mentioned, they need to sing. They need to get their feelings out. They need to feel better. So singing can, of course, build confidence because I have what I call the 3 C's. The first C is control. Humans want control because life is scary. You could die any minute. And We like the control. And there's very little that we can control in the world. And I think a lot of athletes, they perfect their control of their bodies. Well, singers want to be able to control their voice so that when they open their mouth, they have some idea of what's coming out and that it's considered good or, at least not bad. And so when you can do this tiny little thing with your soft palate or pulling up on the side of your nose or not showing your teeth or showing your teeth, there are all these little things you can do that positively can affect the sound or stylistic authenticity or make you sound more like the people that you really like to listen to, gives you that charge, that little hit of in the brain of, I just did something, I controlled something, and I got a positive benefit, and it didn't cost me a lot. It wasn't pain involved. So that's the first of the 3 C's. And then there's consistency. And that's harder for females because of the hormones up and down. But the more consistent you feel, just like if you were a champion skier, if you feel like you minimize your good days and your bad days, that they're almost always good days, that's a huge confidence builder. And those 2 things, control, then consistency, and then you results in confidence. So confidence isn't just telling yourself that you're a good singer. It's knowing in your body that it's true because you can do things you couldn't do before, and you can do them easily, and you can do them in your sleep. You can do them when you're not feeling like it. I mean, how many times have performers had to put on, they've got a gig, they're on stage, they can't, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it. Somebody just died, or I'm sick. Okay, oh, that's too bad. Okay, you give 100 your usual 120% when you're on stage, and then you can pull the covers over your head when you get home. And so that's the professional mindset. And I think the Frank Zappa story was, that idea is that when you're a performer, you're in a whole new league. You're not just a hobbyist. But if you're a hobbyist, you still want to feel happy and bring happiness. What can I do to be happy today? And I'd just like to end my little rant here with the topic of passion, because I've been thinking about passion again, and how passion chooses us. We don't choose it. It's a pleasure pain thing, but it's more than that. It's a mystery. And again, I'm happy to keep it a mystery. But I meet people and what they're passionate about. Oh, I know what it was. I was talking to this guy. He was 18 years old. He's an electrician. And he was really impressive. He solved a problem that the rest of the crew couldn't figure out. And he was talking about, he was interested in taking guitar lessons, but not that interested because he knew he'd have to practice to be any good. And that we got into discussion about passion. He said, I'm passionate about being an electrician. I said, that's amazing. Like you just get a charge, you get a sense of power. And I'm better at this than anything else. I'm better at this than the people around me. I can make a living, particularly if you're an electrician or a plumber. I can make a living doing this. And there's always something to learn. And I think that's great. I see sometimes people when they feel like they've done all this schooling and then they don't want to learn anymore because they're like done. They just want to like doctors, I'm done. I just want to show up at my job and pay off my student loans. But when I saw this kid with his passion for being an electrician and not a passion for learning the guitar, he had an interest. So it just got me thinking the last few days about what is passion? And I have a passion for teaching voice more than I have a passion for singing. I love learning about the voice and passing on whatever I learn. I get so excited. And I have people around the world I do Zoom talks with where it's okay. They want the lowdown. What did I learn in that last thing? And challenges. What am I seeing or problems in organization for conferences? Or who did I meet who maybe was terrific at extreme vocal sounds that I'm going to add them to my list. So if people want to become, growlmeisters, I've got a list for them of people who are, I'm stamped with my stamp of approval. They may not be the most famous, but I believe they're the best demonstrators and explainers of something that I dabble in, but am not an expert in.
You know, one of the things when you said that singers are in the happiness business, I think as teachers, we are in the confidence building business. And I think our job is part of it as we build relationship and trust with our students is to help them find the confidence and the passion within them. I truly believe that everybody should sing. The voice is the one instrument we all get, and it is up to us how we use that. And I think everybody should train. I think it was in the 60s or maybe the early 70s, the Board of Education changed the protocols for music education in the schools. And then it used to be where every child had to have some sort of music education all the way until high school, through high school. And then after college, they could do whatever they want. In college, they could do whatever. But every student through K through 12th grade had to have some sort of music appreciation, chorus, band, glee club, something along those. And when they changed the rules, I believe that music reflected the music we heard over the airwaves, the music we ingested on a daily basis changed because it was not a required subject. And so people seek out, oh, I'm not a singer. They'll tell me, oh, I'm not a singer. Yes, you are. You're just undiscovered. You have a voice. It's up to you to use it. Now, I want to shift gears again. You said something on your questionnaire that I thought was very interesting. You basically said, we've lost melody. We've lost some actual singing, which goes to what I'm just talking about. We made it a little too easy for people to sound like artists without really doing the work. So let's widen that out real briefly. What worries you most about modern vocal culture?
Well, do you mean in the pop world?
Yeah, well, you were talking about style over substance, basically. Over reliance on production, too many people building a sound with technology instead of actually building their instrument with discipline.
Well, where do I start? I really think it was the rap starting in the 90s that led to a demise of and a lowering of cultural standards about what music is and what being a musician is. That now that anyone can sit in their closet with a laptop and put beats together, and now with AI, I feel that it's lowered the standards for what actual singing is, and that over reliance on technology takes some of the humanity. When you I was listening to some music yesterday from the 70s, and there's a number of out of tune notes on these hit songs, but they don't bother you because it sounds like a real person singing. And now, when every note is auto-tuned, there's something missing. The voice becomes another electronic instrument, but they lose some humanity. So when I'm recording a student, I only fix the most out of tune notes. If they're slightly out, I keep them because it sounds like they have emotion. So I think that we've lost, especially in R&B. R&B is not that popular anymore. As a style, and it was considered, the peak of pop singing was R&B singers, Luther Vandross and Whitney Houston, for example. And now it doesn't sell a lot of records. I fear for the entire pop music industry. I mean, we used to make albums, and I know there's some young people, they appreciate holding an album, their vinyl, and like we did, when you read the cover and you hold it and you listen to a whole album. But with the social media, and I have to admit, I'm becoming addicted as well to these short little hits of joy by seeing dogs and cats and little happy things. That the patience it takes to sit through a whole album I just think is maybe gone forever. I think it's our job as teachers to keep the standards high and to make sure that our students are aware of what great singing sounds like, to counteract the mechanical or phoned in junk that they may be hearing is limited range, limited timbre, limited volume. I make sure they know who are the established great singers of the past, because they might not otherwise know about them.
Sure. So if you were vocal queen for a day and could ban one thing immediately, what would it be? Maybe it would be auto-tune, bad terminology.
Oh yeah, bad terminology, because that's been a lifelong frustration in my. No, there's an
That's
auto
good.
tune has a place, just not auto tune. I call it spot tuning, because
Right.
I don't sing every note in tune, and um, I know one person maybe who sings every note in tune and still sounds like they're full of expression. But so yeah, definitely it would be. What was the one I said?
You said bad terminology.
Bad terminology. The lack of trying to explain something in an unclear way, to me, is lazy. It's a no. There's a place for There's a place for placement. There's a place for these. There's a place for the traditional terms, because they work with some people. So my job as a teacher has been to enlarge my toolkit adequately. So I'm not selling a simple system and that's what everybody gets. That I have enough tools so that if plan A doesn't work with a student because of the way their brain works or their intelligence level, I've got plan B, plan C. I've got a whole list of backup ideas to try. So I see the spark in the eye. I see that they got what I'm trying to say and they can manifest it. Some students are visual learners, some are auditory learners, some are kinesthetic. Uh, some there are a lot of learning disabilities out there. There's a lot of people with autism, or ADHD that want to sing, and or dyslexia, and we have to find ways. So my job is to I'm committed, because you once asked me something and it really threw me in 2009. You said, "What's my mission?" And I'd never thought about my mission. And frankly, when you asked me that and it threw me, I have never stopped thinking about my mission, since then. So thank you for opening up that door to to having a kind of a thread or an intention that is the spine of everything I do when I'm working with people. Oh, here's what I want to say. Whatever works. Whatever works. I know too many teachers, they have a limited skill set, and they just keep beating their terminology or their concepts until somebody just gives in and acts like they understand. So my intention is that they get it. They get it, and whatever I have to do, so they get it and they have improvement and more joy, and they want to come back because it was just so much darn fun. That's the
Yeah,
core.
absolutely.
And so I'm not tied to all these methods that I've developed and all these opinions about what works and doesn't. I'm open, and I will steal from other teachers. I'll tell them, I was like, that I love the way you worded that, or that's a fantastic approach. I'll give you credit, but so. And that's one of the nice things about the conferences. And you can go into a presentation by someone with whom you think is the worst, who should not be that famous, because they, for whatever reason, and there can be lots of different reasons, but I still go. I go because they're respected, and I may learn something.
That's great. So this is the section of the show we always do. It's called Quick Fire. So no overthinking. You're just going to hear the question and you're just going to just go, like, short answers though. Okay. So a song you wish you had recorded,
but not done as well, like Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. But I think that would be a really fun song to record. It just popped into my head, but it wouldn't be anywhere near like She's Too Great,
Okay. A city you could happily revisit every year.
Prescott, Arizona.
Most glamorous thing about voice research.
Having the opportunity to work with world-class scientists and their million-dollar pieces of equipment, where they're happy to have me.
Least glamorous thing about voice research.
putting cameras down your nose when you have a horrible sinus infection.
A food you love that other people judge.
Diet Pepsi.
Something people assume about great singers that is just flat out wrong.
Oh, but singers who have a really awful vibrato. And everyone thinks they're a great singer.
There you go. So at this point in your life, what feels more luxurious, silence, beauty, or time?
Well, I live in the country, so silence is not a rarity. Beauty, I live for beauty. And time, I'm so grateful for. I'm healthy. There's a lot of time. I think I have a lot of time left.
So Lisa, before we close out, what I love about this conversation is that underneath all the research and experience and artistry, I want to ask you, what keeps coming through for you?
That life can be fun. As scary as it is, it can be really fun if you find that one or more things.
Deeply human, and the voice is not just about sound, is it? It's about confidence, expression, freedom, joy. We've talked about joy and happiness and connection. And I think that's why your work has lasted so long. You're not just helping people sing better, you're helping them to become more human, more clear, more free, more expressive, and more fully themselves. So before we go, I'd love for you to speak directly to the person listening right now who may want to sing better, speak better, or simply feel more at home in their own voice, literally or metaphorically. What would you say to them?
Sky's the limit, meaning if you're passionate about it and you enjoy the process, keep looking for solutions and keep singing. A lot of people who want to sing don't actually sing very much. They think about it, they come to their lesson, but then they don't sing. Sing every day.
Yeah, I think it'll make your day better too, won't it?
Yeah. And cars great, showers great, enjoy yourself. No one on the planet has your voice, has never had your voice, and no one on the planet will ever have your voice. So to use it and just to tell you, so I'm a singer. I sing. I'm a singer. It came as part of the package. We're just, people like Heather and me, we're just helping you with the instruction manual.
That's right. That's right. Tell everybody how to find you.
I have a website, popeil.com, Popeil.com, and talks a lot about my history. I also have a YouTube channel, and my door's open, meaning happy to respond to emails and questions and guidance in my golden years. So don't hesitate to contact me if you think I can be of use.
Well, that's awesome. Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
You're amazing. You're an amazing interviewer. Amazing. Some of your questions will also last me for the rest of my life. It's like, ooh, I have to give that more thought. Brilliant. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, no worries. Well, this has been the Heather Petero Show, where conversation meets calling. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and use your voice on purpose. You've been listening to the Heather Petero Show, produced by Heather Petero Studios. Connect with us on Facebook or Instagram, or visit heatherpetero.com. Until next time, stay creative and live on purpose.